What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Sasser House. In today's video, we're going to be flipping 3 different coffee tables. I'm going to take each table and show you a different way that you can refinish a piece of furniture or a coffee table like one of these. So if you guys want to learn some of these different methods, maybe you want to flip furniture for a profit, or you just want to flip a coffee table for your home, just keep watching. I'm going to teach you guys the 3 best methods for flipping coffee tables. Let's get started. So for coffee table number 1, a friend of ours actually gave us this coffee table and asked us to refinish this, but they want it just basically refinished and refurbished and look exactly like it did when it was brand new. This has been in their family for years and they want it just restored just how it has always been. And so obviously it has quite a bit of damage on the top just from years of use and cups and water damage and things like that. So for coffee table number 1, we are going to just sand this all down to the bare wood. So all of the flat surfaces like the top and the shelf, we're gonna sand down with our orbital sander. I've got 80 grit sandpaper on here, so that should eat through that pretty quick. And then all of the spindle legs, I'll show you guys exactly how we're gonna get that off after we're done sanding this. Make sure to wear a respirator. This stuff's not good for you to breathe in while you're sanding. I really do not like sanding, so to get this off as fast as possible, I am using my Ryobi orbital sander with 60 grit sandpaper. I'm going to sand it all down as far as I can to the bare wood, and then I'm going to go back with 180 grit just to give it a nice smooth finish before we start applying stain. I got all of this sanded down to the bare wood except for the parts in the details and the legs. So we've got our compressor hooked up and this little bucket and gun that is called a soda blaster. And if you haven't heard of these, this is basically like sandblasting, but it's just using baking soda. And so this is gonna be how we are going to get all of the stain and varnish off of the detail spots that we can't get our sander in. So basically it hooks to compressor and all you have to do is just pull the trigger and it shoots baking soda, and those little fine grit particles just break down all of the stain, and then we'll be able to stain it. I love using soda blasters. They are honestly so good, and it is honestly really, really fun to use because it's just satisfying to see it eat that stain away. But it definitely is not a fast process. It's very tedious work to get it out of all of these details on these legs. I bet that each one of these legs on this coffee table probably took me at least 10 to 15 minutes of using this soda blaster on it. I probably could have used like a furniture stripper or something like that, but I always prefer to use my soda blaster because I just hate furniture stripper. It is like such a toxic chemical. It smells horrible, and it just ends up being like a sticky mess. So here is what it looks like after I used the soda blaster and got all of that stain off of everything. All right, so I've got coffee table number 1 pretty much sanded down to the bare wood. There's still a little bit on these legs that I wasn't able to get, but I got all of the varnish knocked off, and that is okay that it's not completely sanded down to the bare wood, because we are going back with Early American, which is pretty much the same color or really similar color stain that was already there. So it should just still cover up really nicely and look like a fresh coat of stain. So I'm gonna take this Minwax Early American stain and just a little t-shirt cloth and start wiping on the stain. I'm gonna start down with the bottom shelf, the legs, and then we'll finish off with the top. Okay, now while coffee table number 1 is in the shed drying, we're gonna go ahead and start on coffee table number 2. And for this coffee table, we're planning to only sand down the top and restain the top, and then we're gonna paint that base. I really do like the base of this coffee table. It's very unique, and I think it'll look really good painted. So we're gonna start by just sanding down the top of this coffee table. Now for the top of coffee table number 2, we're gonna take this creamy white colored paint and mix it with some water and make a paint wash for the top. So what I'm gonna do is just open this paint up, and I'm going to pour a little bit. We don't need much because this is a pretty small area that we're gonna do. I'm gonna pour a little bit of that creamy white color down into our paint pail. Then I'm gonna go get some water in this and stir it together. So we've got a real watered down version of this creamy white paint. Now we're just gonna take another t-shirt cloth and we're going to rub it around all of the edges first and then across the top, just like we would a stain. Now we're gonna let that soak in for a little while and see what it looks like after it dries. And we may leave it like this, but we're probably going to actually take that same Minwax Early American stain and go over top of this, and it should make a really light, kind of driftwoody look on the top. Now I'm gonna take Dixie Belle's silk paint in the color Anchor, which is just a really nice black color. And I'm gonna paint the base of coffee table number 2 in black.
I love using this Dixie Belle silk paint. It is an all-in-one paint, meaning you don't have to do any primer or top coat, and I absolutely love it. If you guys missed that video, I did a complete review video on this paint, and I even did a little durability test where I beat up some of these little sample boards and put it through the test. And this paint honestly is the best furniture paint that I've ever used, so I highly recommend it. I'll link that video up above now, but that is the paint that we're using for this coffee table.
So I didn't like the color of the top. After 2 coats of stain with that whitewash, it just had this really dull gray color, and I wanted it to be warmer. So now I just took this Dixie Belle gel stain in the color American Honey and went over it, and I love the color of it right now, but it's still wet. So we will just wait and see what it looks like after it dries, but I'm starting to love it a lot better now with this American Honey over top. So hopefully it keeps this warmer tone when it dries. Okay, so now we're moving on to coffee table number 3. This coffee table, I'm pretty sure, is not real wood. It is made in China and it's made in 2015, and I just don't think that it is real wood. It's got this really heavy textured kind of faux wood finish all over it. And so I thought this was a great opportunity to basically go back with a really similar homemade DIY faux wood finish, because that's already what's here, and it's got these deep, heavy lines. And so I think that that will add to our faux wood finish look. So the first thing we're gonna do for this is take our Zinsser's Cover Stain Primer, and we're going to prime the entire piece of furniture. Prime this piece of furniture, we're going to start with the underneath of the coffee table and the legs, and we are just using this little 3-inch foam roller, and we're going to just roll as much of it as we can. This is really just to make the next step, which will also be paint, to make this all stick. I'm not even going to use a brush with this oil based because I don't want to have to worry about cleaning it up. And if we don't get all of those little edges and stuff in the legs, that is totally okay, because this is just the primer. All right, so I just mixed up some white and brown paint and made this kind of creamy tan or really light brown color. And now I'm going to just paint this with a paintbrush and give it a good coat of this tan paint. Again, I'm going to start on the bottom and paint the legs and this underneath trim, and then we'll flip it over and paint the top.
While I'm painting this coffee table, I'm going to go back over all of the steps to get this faux wood finish for you guys. So obviously back to step 1, you're going to prime your piece of furniture. Then you want to paint it with a cream or a tan paint. And then step 3, you're going to take some of this decorative glaze by Rust-Oleum. This is the color Java Brown. I'm going to use an old paintbrush that's got really thick bristles and then a little miniature broom. And the reason we're using this paintbrush and this little miniature broom to apply the glaze is we're trying to get as much texture and wood grain look as we possibly can on this piece.
So to get this faux wood look, what we're gonna do is take this decorative glaze in the color Java Brown by Rust-Oleum. We're gonna get it on one of these old paint brushes that's got really thick, crazy bristles. It's just been used a bunch. And what we're gonna do is basically just brush on this glaze, and we're kind of being messy with it. It's not like paint. We honestly want there to be brush lines, because that's kind of what's gonna give it that wood grain look. And so I'm gonna go around all of the edges first right here and brush on the glaze. And this piece of furniture actually happens to have a bunch of fake wood grooves or lines that look like wood grain. And so this piece is actually gonna look, I think, really good because it has that wood grain already kind of built in. But even if your surface is just completely flat, that's ultimately what we're going for anyways, is some thicker lines to make it look like it is wood grain. And this stuff doesn't dry too quick, so I'm honestly not worried about doing the broom step. I'm gonna go ahead and get the glaze on the entire top first. This glaze goes so far, you really don't need much of it at all. I've already used it on a giant armoire, and then now this entire coffee table, and I've still got 3/4 of this little 32-ounce container. So it goes so far. I'll be able to use this on a lot of pieces of furniture. All right, now that we've gotten the glaze onto the top, we're gonna take our little miniature broom and we're gonna go around, and what we're doing is literally just like very messy like. We're just going around and going back and forth, kind of in the same direction as the wood grain would naturally go. So I'm gonna go around all these edges first, and kind of giving it that wood grain texture with this little broom. And then we'll go across the top. And you definitely want to make sure you're going in one direction, just like wood grain naturally would go. We're just going to go back and forth until we get it where we like it. You can always add a little bit more glaze if you want it a little bit darker, but I think this is going to look really good. All right, I have all 3 of the coffee tables lined up here in the shed, and the only thing left to do on each of them is seal them with polyurethane. I'm going to use this water-based poly by Varathane in the finished semi-gloss.
If you guys have been following me for any time at all, you know that this process is nothing new for me. I've been using this same polyurethane or polyacrylic for a long time, and it's because it works. It's the best stuff that I've ever used, and it's the best way to seal your furniture when flipping. So I just brushed this on. It is a water-based polyurethane, so cleanup is easy, and it is a self-leveling product. It is honestly just the best. Okay, so we're gonna take some 400 grit sandpaper and a little sanding block. We're going to lightly sand in between coats of clear coat with this sanding block. And so I'm gonna sand all of this by hand. We'll do another coat, and then we'll just repeat that step until it gets nice and smooth to the touch. Like right now, it's still pretty rough, and we want this to feel really, really slick and smooth, like a finished piece of furniture that you would buy from a store. When I first started doing furniture, I was very nervous to sand my pretty much finished product because it would leave this like kind of foggy look on everything. And I was so worried that I ruined it. But once you kind of wipe all that dust off and then do another coat of the clear coat, you don't see all of that fogginess and stuff. So it's just kind of the process of sanding between coats. So I'm just taking that sandpaper and that sanding block and lightly sanding everything in between coats. I recommend doing at least 3 to 4 coats, if not more, on something like a coffee table or a kitchen table. That's just going to make these pieces really slick to the touch. And since they are going to be a heavy traffic place for people to touch, lay magazines on, people are going to be dusting these and wiping them off, laying drinks on them and everything. You really want to seal these really well and do several coats. That's going to give you a nice professional smooth finish. And now we are done. Here's a quick reminder of what coffee table number 1 looked like before we got started. This client just wanted this to be refinished just like it was, just all stain. And so here is what it looks like now. The color of stain was a little bit different, but I don't think that they will mind because the top turned out beautiful and it no longer has all of those cup damage, watermarks, and everything all over it. It is honestly like a brand new piece, like you would buy it from the store when you first had it. So that's exactly what they were looking for. I hope that they will love this piece of furniture. Now for coffee table number 2 and option number 2 on refinishing coffee tables, we had this old coffee table that was made in China. It was not solid wood. It kind of had this faux wood finish already, and it did have some damage on the top as well. I wanted to redo this faux wood finish because that's how it was done already, and it had that texture kind of built in. So here's what it looked like before, and here's what it looks like now that we've done it. I think that it still has the same look to it, but honestly that it is just better. I like the fact that it's got more of a warm tone. I like the browns and warm tones better than that gray, and it looks like it did probably when it came from the factory. So given that we didn't have much to work with since it was not real wood to begin with, I think that overall we did pretty good on coffee table number 2. And now for coffee table number 3 and option number 3 of refinishing coffee tables, we have the oval table. I loved the way that this looked. I loved the shape of this. Here was the before and here is the after. I think that this is my favorite transformation by far. I love the way that that brown looks with the stained top. And I think that that whitewash with the several coats of different colors of stain that we didn't intentionally go for turned out beautiful. I love that stain color so much. But let me know which one of these tables was your favorite down in the comments below. Thank you guys again so much for watching this video. I hope you've learned at least 3 different ways to flip coffee tables. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We'll see you guys on the next one.